Hello and welcome back to What's Bubbling at ZIM Bubbling. I am Dr. Abstract, and in this bubbling we're going to continue to take a look at what's new in ZIM 018. Let's go to the ZIM site now at zimjs.com. And we could press the banner here or find it up above here, what's new in 018. And we come on down, we have this new thing called the Carousel 3D. So we already have a carousel. As a matter of fact, on the front of ZIM, here's the front of ZIM, this thing is a carousel. So as I use my arrows, I go like that. And then this is also a carousel here. Okay, so but we now have a 3D carousel, and so that's here. This example's quite complex because we put many of the components in ZIM inside the carousel. As you can see they're interactive as well, if indeed they are interactive components. Okay, and there's some information on them that would take you through to the docs. It's almost like little trading cards, and you can see them all. Look at that. And we can use the arrow here to skip between them, as well as we can press on here to go to a specific one. And then there's the swiping. All right, there you go. That's what the carousel does. We won't look at this example because you'll be welcome to that, but we added a whole bunch of components. Fairly easy to do, but still there's 40 of them or something like that, 30, 40. So we won't look at that example. Let's drop it down, and instead we are looking at this example, which is a simple version of it, and we'll open it in default browser and show you. So here it is. We're taking a sprite and we're loading each of the sprite frames into a carousel. Okay, so that's that one. And let's have a look. Here's us bringing in the sprite PNG right there. We're using ZIM 018. I'm bringing in pizzazz. I don't even know if we need pizzazz. I don't think so. Take that out. Let's see if it still works. Save that. And refresh here. One of the other ones probably needed pizzazz. Yeah, we don't need pizzazz. So just loading ZIM. Oh, right. And I'm taking this from the docs. And in the docs, we wanted a relatively complete version without needing this stuff. There's the AI monsters. I don't need to do this from the assets. Okay, so we don't need a complete. And we don't need that. What's this timeout doing? Testing. So there we are testing some of the features that we can do after, some of the properties. And good. Now let's make sure it still works. Hey! Yeah, it still works. Okay. And we'll upload. All right. So that was me testing the docs example to make sure the docs example worked, and it did on its own there, but now we may as well load through the frame. Okay, then we've got our sprite, and we are looping 4x4. That's what the sprite is, 4x4. We're making a pages array. We're running the frame. So as we loop through, whatever I is, that's what frame we're going to. We're setting the registration point to the center, and we're putting it into the pages array. So now we have an array of display objects. That's what we pass into the indicator. It takes an array of the display objects, which is called what? Where the heck is it? Carousel go, called pages. One of these should be pages then. And oh, this is the indicator. Sorry, that's the indicator. Here's the carousel. There we are passing it the pages. Okay, good. We have an indicator. You don't need an indicator. So the indicator is down below here. And we can make it interactive as we did. Ah, that was it. We had mentioned in one of the previous bubblings that we made new parameters for the indicator. Watch what happens. If I press this, it doesn't go there immediately. Instead, we manually sort of make it, as it animates, we make it go there. The indicator couldn't do that before. So we added some new parameters. One was called delay lights true, I guess. And I'm not sure what toggle first did in that regard. Toggle first. You know, does something. You can read it in the docs. That's not what we're talking about. And the arrows. So we've got arrows as well. And you can see that the indicator, before we jump to the arrows, the indicator is telling the carousel to go to whatever the indicator's index is. So that's pretty straightforward. You can go to an index. And the arrows themselves are calling carousel next and carousel prev. So that just takes you to the previous and next. You can also decide whether you want your carousel to be continuous. It's not here, but it's one of the parameters of the carousel. And we've got the carousel, we're centering it, and change. When the carousel changes its page, we're also going to set the indicator's index to the carousel's index. That probably means you could easily bind that as well. If those are the same things, we could have bound it in one line as well. All right, so here's the carousel. It's carousel 3D right there. We were going to call it Dex, D-E-X, so that would have been ZIM Dex for like a Rolodex kind of, but we decided not to because whatever. It was more of a trademark versus a description, and most of the ZIM things are as descriptive as we can make them. Some are a little trademarky, but like Scrambler maybe, but still this is pretty straightforward here. There's the dimensions. Here's the pages that we're going to go through. And then these are factors, and we'll talk about those. Let's see what this looks like without these factors. So if we didn't have the factors, here's what it currently looks like. You see how there's this much room, and if I refresh now it's more of a curve thing. We can see more of them, but we can see less of them. So we can see more things, but less of each of those things. So it's harder to tell what's going on. So these things that we add on here are some factors, and we'll go look at what those factors are in just a sec, but let me save it up and go back again, refresh. Now we see fewer of them, but more of each of the things we see. So that was pretty tricky to code that and figure out a way to make it so that you could adjust it. And I don't know, I think we did an okay job. It ended up being primarily two factors that do that. But like I said, we'll see that in just a sec. Let's finish up here. We see all this stuff. Okay, so there's one thing we were checking to see if the continuous property worked. So continuous means will it wrap or not? And you would set that at the beginning when we make the carousel in here. Then you can go to the ZIM Duo and get right to certain parameters if you want as well. But there we were testing to make sure that we could set that dynamically afterwards. And we could also wanted to see if we could add items. So there we are adding an item. So dynamically adding an item and dynamically removing an item. So you can remove item and add item. I believe add item might let you do an array as well of items, but maybe should have called it add items. I'm not sure. We can look at that when it comes to the docs. So we're going to peek at the docs now to find out what these mean right here. All right, let's do that. The docs. Docs. And we type in car and hit go. There's the carousel, so just watch it. Carousel's different, and I hit go again. Carousel 3D. Right there. So width, height, items, the width factor, the height factor, the curve, whether the content's interactive, continuous, a fade. So the fade and fade color, that's as it goes off the edges, that's the fade. Vertical or horizontal. So we can do a vertical or a horizontal carousel. The sensitivity of the swipe. All these guys go right into the swiper. So it runs on a swiper. You can swipe them. Sensitivity, dampen factor. There's the index, selected index. You would just use index these days. Selected index is old. And there we go. Okay, so let's have a look here. A 3D carousel that cycles through items as it's swiped. Use next, previous, or go. It can be horizontal, vertical. And there's two examples. So the first example is that complicated one. And then this is the one we've been looking at is _2 there, which is really this right here. So that's where we got that. All right, what are these things then? I mean, so anything in width and height? I don't think so. Oh, the items are scaled to fit either the width or the height. So just beware of that, and you can read about that. They should all be the same size pretty well. I think that's important as well, if I remember correctly. So treat them like cards of the same size sort of thing. They don't have to be cards, but okay, but treat them like that. So items are scaled to the height or the width, depending. A string will be converted into a new pic. So if you do pass in an array of strings, then it assumes that they're pictures, so that's handy. If the item is not a form of a container, it will be placed in a container so that the fade works. If it is a container of some sort, including things like rectangles and even pics or containers, then that would be fine. Original item will be available as currentItem.content. Okay, that makes the original item. Items will also automatically have their registration point to center. Oh, so it looks like we didn't have to register those in the center. Maybe you should change that. So these are the factors then. Default 1 for both of them. A number to spread out items horizontally. Just experiment. For instance, 2.5 or 10 to see what the results are. So that sort of spreads the items out horizontally. Great. heightFactor, a number to spread the items out vertically. Just experiment 2.5 or 10 and see the results. Good. Curve, default 0.5, a ratio from 0 to 1. So the width factor and the height factor, that's a multiplier. The curve, though, is a number from 0 to 1 that will move outside items inward to make the carousel look more curved. The equations for spreading out and scaling the items is pretty tricky. Settings also change depending on the number of items. So adjust the width factor, height factor, and curved until you get a desired result. For a horizontal carousel, adjusting the height factor will cause the outside items to get smaller faster. Sometimes outside items will appear to float, so then increase the curve. By float, we mean if they get too small, they're no longer really joined to the carousel. They're too far outside because, well, they're not really too far outside, but they just are smaller, so they don't overlap or underlap, I guess is the word. All right. Sometimes the curve will cause unexpected behavior, like crossing over, like it flips. So then reduce the curve. Try 0.98 rather than 1. All right, so you can get right down into the decimals here to really get what you want. So sorry about that. I mean, I wish there were, and maybe there is, but it was tricky coding all that. And we did our best at making it, you know, you're going to have to experiment with it, basically. So interactive, set to true to allow interactivity within the items. So it defaults to false. So by default, it's not interactive, which means you can swipe anywhere. Setting to true may remove swiping on the items, but this can be adjusted. For instance, if you use a page to hold the interactive objects, then each page you can set page.background.noMouse. So swiping is kind of done behind the, imagine it done behind the objects. So we've turned the interactivity on the objects off, which allows you to swipe through them in a sense, like actually mouse through them to the swiper. If you want to turn them on, then those things are going to get in the way of the swiper. Those pages are getting in the way of the swiper. But you can turn the backgrounds of the pages no mouse. So basically most of it, and that's what we've done on our main carousel example with the components. So these are pages with their backgrounds, no mouse. so that if I swipe on the background, it swipes. But if I swipe here, it doesn't swipe. It does the interaction. There wasn't any interaction there. Let's find one that's interactive. I don't know if we made that. No, we didn't make that interactive. That's interactive. Hello. Okay, so that doesn't swipe in there. This list right here. The list is tricky. And the list is not working at the moment. There we go. List is tricky because if lists are moving, they get messed up. So it's a little bit tricky. Everything else should be fine. Like things like tabs and stuff. Fine. List is really anything in a window or a list. Those are tricky to animate. Okay, so you see the difference. We've turned the backgrounds off so that we can interact with the components that are here. I guess that might be it then. What do you think? Do you like it? It looks good. I'm going to go right now to the CodePen and take a look at the carousel here. That has just under 2,000 views and 52 likes. This game was also well liked, but not at the same percentage. This was 1,000, so that's about half. Double it would be 40. So that was this one was well liked. But anyway, that's a lot. This is the carousel of some books. And here is the code. It's funny, on CodePen, I think people actually like to see code. We're the other way around. We like it better if you could just say, new carousel, put these things in it, and you get to do it so easily. And people on CodePen won't like that as much as seeing all the hard work that got there. So it's a weird thing. So this is some of the code that was actually in a carousel. So you're welcome to come out here. In other words, we made this before, so we made this and then took this code and moved it into ZIM. Whenever we do that, there's a lot more that we have to do to the code. Often this is very specific for a certain thing. Once we bring it into ZIM, we have to give it more parameters. I'm not sure, maybe this has all the parameters though. WidthFactor curve. Yeah, it looks like it's about the same. But anyway, we still have to adapt it in ZIM, so there's more to it than this. Add properties that we probably didn't add here. Do we have any properties? No. We've got to maybe, yeah, we don't have any properties. So all the properties to make this work. But anyway, this was well liked in, and it was actually a challenge for a carousel, I think. So let's see, under comments, is that where I go? Preparing ZIM 018 with the Dex class to make a scrolling carousel. And this was for a CodePen challenge card carousel. So here are some of the other card carousels that are out there. Oh, there's mine. This one has 89. Oh, they like that more than mine. With 2,500. Yeah. So why? Oh, it's got a cute little, I don't know, in the content. So that's and made with CSS. So sometimes this isn't active. The indicator's not active. Can I swipe? I can't swipe. It's got this neat little doohickey here, but I don't think I'd like this as much. Maybe it's done in CSS, so that's handy too. And what have we got here? Holy moly. Okay, 500 lines of CSS. Lines of HTML. Any JS? Any JavaScript? No JavaScript. So yeah, maybe that's why people like it. Is like, oh my goodness, you've miraculously made this only with CSS in 500 lines. You know, it's sort of like, okay, we're sitting at 200 lines. Remember, they had also 300 lines of HTML. So anyway. And now you can build it in like 3 lines. Yay! New carousel. Woo! All right, I'm Dr. Abstract. I hope you like this bubbling. Come on in and join us at zimjs.com/discord or zimjs.com/forum. Forum's really our main ones. If you do Discord, great. But if you do Discord, say something. Oh my God, we've got so many people on Discord and nobody says anything. We try and say hi to them. It's just like, God, Discord is for like talking to people. Don't you know how to use this? You lurkers. Anyway, we also have our forum, so come on into the forum. I am Dr. Abstract. Hopefully you're having a great day or night. And this has been a What's Bubbling at Zim. Take it easy. Try out the new Carousel 3D. Cheers.